Welcome, listeners, to another story from Reddit. I present to you the perfect haunted house. Are you sure this is the right place? Doesn't look very haunted to me. Will lowers the camera from his eye, looking up at the house before us. I admit the outside didn't look much different from the other houses on the street. White picket fence, green shuttered windows, a newly updated roof. Hell, the white paint on its walls looked new. This is the place if the stories are true. Our views are gonna go through the roof. I pick up an equipment case and push open the wooden gate guarding the lawn. Walking up the sidewalk to the front door, I take note of the almost perfect flower bushes growing along the base of the house. All the flowers were in bloom, without any wilting or buds to be seen. A little shiver of unease wiggled up my spine, but I shook it off. I push the doorbell with my thumb and adjust the heavy case in my hand. Will follows me up the stoop, and I can see that he's looking at the flowers too. His brow is furrowed in thought, and he takes a couple shots of the garden as we wait. Footsteps echo from somewhere inside the house, and I turn back to face the door. The door opens without a single creak, and a small round face looks up at me. Mrs. Merkel was newly widowed and eager for company. She was small, maybe 4 feet, and had large round glasses over her eyes. Her hair was recently done, a perfect mass of gray ringlets circling her head. "Oh boys, you're here. Do come in. I just finished baking some blueberry muffins. Come in, come in." She shuffles to the side, a wide, toothy smile on her face. As the door opens, I see the inside of the house is much like the outside. Fresh, clean furniture, clean wallpaper, and more perfect flowers placed into vases. Just like a home you'd see in a magazine. "Thank you, Mrs. Merkel, but we'd really like to start the interview if you don't mind." She was heading toward the kitchen, shuffling her slipper-covered feet along the hardwood floor. She stopped abruptly and took an uneasy amount of time to turn around. "Sure, boys. It won't be but a second. Make yourself at home and we'll start the interview when I get back with the goodies." She smiled then, but something about it wasn't right. It wasn't a warm, welcoming smile, more like a hungry grin. Will and I exchanged glances, then made our way to the room she had gestured to. A love seat and matching armchair sat facing an old box TV, and a wooden coffee table lay in the center. Another vase of those perfect roses sat in the center of it all. We took our seats on the love seat, and Will nervously examined his camera. I could tell he felt it too, but it was too late to back out now. Mrs. Merkel came back carrying a tray of warm and delicious smelling muffins. She set them down on the coffee table before us, then went to sit down in the armchair. It seemed to swallow her small stature as she sat, pulling a half-finished sewing project into her lap. She began to knit, all while smiling and staring at us. I cleared my throat uncomfortably and reached out for a muffin. My hand stopped an inch before the warm pastry. Every single muffin was identical. Every blueberry, every crumb. All in the exact same place. Perfect copies. I glanced up at the little old woman, but quickly looked away. She now looked much older and a lot worse. Her hair was wild around her head, missing in clumps. Her lips were extremely thin, almost non-existent, and small streams of blood poured from her bleeding gums. Her eyes were even smaller, just little black beads in her skull. A large crack split the lens of her glasses above her left eye. My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't stop myself from quickly rising to my feet. "I'm sorry. I just realized we had another interview scheduled just before yours today. We'll be back later." "Will?" I steal a glance away from the quickly decaying form in front of me and look to Will. Unlike me, he hadn't noticed the oddly perfect muffin and had taken a large bite out of one. Instead of my friend, there has now sat a perfect copy of him, made entirely out of porcelain glass. It mimicked him right down to the mole underneath his right ear. Oh, dearie, where are you off to in such a hurry? I have so much to tell you about my perfectly haunted house. Starting with me. I feel a small clawed hand grasp my elbow and sink its nails into my skin. I'm spun around to face it, and now I face the real ghost of the house. She had stretched to match my height, and now her beady eyes stared deep into mine. Deep, broken cracks now permeated her skin. Whispering voices seemed to seep out of them. Cries and screams, all distant, but clear like ringing bells. I could hear Wills among them, screaming at me to run. A cackle leaked out of Mrs. Merkel's bloody lips, and she smiled that wide, hungry smile. Come now, dearie. You wanted a real haunted house. Let me show you mine. Thanks for listening. And like you were told when you were children, beware of strangers with goodies. We'll see you next time.